All right, thank you guys so much for having me. Again, my name is Abby Duran. Can everyone hear me okay? Good, awesome. I am actually from the Charleston 1 Million Cups chapter, but I am kind of floating around the US here. And like I mentioned before, Seattle is one of my favorite cities, so this is a bit of an honor to present. So raise your hand if you've ever had trouble just sitting down, writing a letter, finishing a thesis, or someone's like, hey, I want you to do a presentation, go get started. Okay, most of us, right? Yes. Now, when it comes to business, it can get a little bit more gritty. Because you kind of want to do it internally and talk about yourself first and then your business, right? Well, what if I told you that you could craft your business content with your story? And that is where I come in, where business and storytelling collide, because your verbiage is my vision. So in one session, I can tackle all your content with your content being visually. I like to look at the vision as well as the verbiage when I'm looking at your social media, your website content, products and service descriptions. So any kind of copywriting, we can tackle that as well. Professional biographies, which I like to call sometimes bitchin' biographies, because they are pretty awesome. Obviously, strategy and general editing, but my niche is more narration. So I'm a storyteller at heart, and I use that to craft people's business bios, and out of their business bios, I can then get all of this other information out of it, because essentially your business is you, right? And in addition to that, I do general editing, but the main focus is the narration and tying it in with your business wording. So a lot of people don't realize, like, what's the whole vision in storytelling, right? Well, I get to step into your shoes. Think about it this way. I send you a Q&A after our first little session. That way I can get to know you and your business at the same time. And we can also tackle things like looking at financial statements, because sometimes if there's not a lot of information, or you just have a domain, you're just starting out and you don't really know what's going on with the business, sometimes we can look at that through your financial statements and find a story in the numbers, which is super fascinating. It kind of helps curve direction, especially for nonprofits. If you ever worked for them, you realize you have to be super transparent, right? So getting that in a more breakdown for the public audience is not everyone's forte, but I can tell you, when you tell a story, it sells. And also time efficiency. It's less mundane for me to do something like this. And also you have someone who's generally interested coming in and sort of just making it very creative, but on a business spectrum to your target audience. And also formulating relationships that you never had prior to this. And that can not just be with just me, but also the new clientele that you'll reach from your showcase. So this brings me to my first client. Now, I had the opportunity to go overseas for a BNI chapter, actually. And this gentleman had a domain, but no presence whatsoever. He had nothing to work with, and he had a slogan, and that was it. So what I did a WhatsApp conversation with him, and I did a Q&A based on him. Got to know a little bit how he thinks, very logical in the automotive tech world. And as someone who's not familiar with the industry, I was kind of able to go back into my journalistic mode and gather some information, just so we can make his website a little bit more to his liking, but also able to graph what I did out of the narration. I didn't publish the narration as he didn't want me to, but out of that, I was able to craft his website content. And I was able to understand that they were not advertising the number one thing that they sell, which is custom engines. And they're the only one in their country to do so, by the way. And now he has expanded on to international investors and other places. And I apologize if anyone's hearing dogs right now. My second client is out of Charleston, South Carolina. Nicole came to me with two goals. She wanted to obviously generate more income with the candle making business, as opposed to working 3 jobs at once, and also promote autism awareness in the Latin community. Now, she was actually terrified to go on social media. She didn't even know where to start. She just knew I was a writer. So we got together and I sat down with her in her kitchen as she's making candles. And I just did it kind of in an article format. We posted it on my website and in Spanish so we could reach the audience that she wanted. And out of that, we also sat down and spent some time with her getting to know social media and TikTok. And now she is just killing it right now. And I can say that she is now confident enough that she is earning income on her own with this business, Awesome Candle Company. And she's one of the top Etsy sellers in the country right now. So I'm super proud of her and all that confidence. But one cool thing about this, when we did post the article on the website, a gentleman from Portugal reached out to her and said, I can heavily relate with your situation, having an autistic son. So that was kind of a relationship she would have probably never had in that way too. So a little bit about my story. I was in music journalism for like over 10 years. And I helped with a photojournalistic publication in Charleston called 9 to 5 Magazine. I worked with a lot of vendors, festivals, musicians, etc. But what I kind of came to realize was that creatives don't like doing the mundane tasks of managing themselves. And you still need to make money in your art or whatever craft it is. So when I went to school, I started using the music industry concentration knowledge and helping creatives manage themselves. So that would be a service that I would provide on the side, as well as doing press releases and artist bios and things like that. And also I wanted a platform for artists to share their story that were not in kind of the mainstream media spectrum. And that is how VeraNation got started. It was a music blog, a little humble music blog back in the day. And then I turned it into this global culture blog / writing service, because I want people to also have the ability to share global stories as well. So this was a kind of a way to do it all at once. And this was the beginning of that. And again, my aha moment number 2 was when I was overseas and I was surrounded by young entrepreneurs. And I realized that I can do more than just doing press releases and music management. I can also tell other people's stories and kind of formulate that narration into a writing service that could be beneficial to businesses overall. By the way, does anyone know what the official language of business is, or original language of business besides English? No, it was actually Arabic. And just so you know, I know Seattle's probably great at this. I am not the best at technology. It is absolutely an Achilles heel for me. If I don't have to YouTube how to trim a video, like, I'm thrilled. Okay. So I am very new to things. PowerPoint's probably my limit as far as technology. So any kind of tool or transformation or workshops, anything related to technology, I'm all for. Open ears. Self-promotion, that's something I'm still working on overall. And I think everyone gets a little backed up on that. You kind of get so focused on your client that you kind of forget about yourself a little bit. And as for the right audience, my ideal clients or connections are really more just people who want to get to that next level. They're ready to just they're kind of in between. They're not quite, quite at what they want to be, but they're very close and they just need that little extra push or just a second pair of eyes. And that's where I like to come in. I don't want to be there when you're like up here or maybe you're just starting. I'm happy to do that too. I just like the people that are still figuring things out and just want a different creative outlook and not necessarily one who's kind of made it. And this is where you can find me. So.
Okay. Thank you, Abby, for that presentation. Let's, excuse me. Let's jump into questions because I know it looks like we already have Dale that has something to pop in there. Go ahead, Dale.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, Abby. That was wonderful. One of the things that came across when when I first saw the way you described your company, but then when I saw your examples, I was noticing a little bit of a contrast in that, you know, I agree. Like you're clearly helping people articulate the story that they can use to help other people understand their business. But it sounds like you're also really helping people publicize. Um, uh, and I thought it was funny you were mentioning that you weren't necessarily feeling comfortable with self-promotion, but when I heard you describe the advice you were giving to people, it was very much about like it sounds like your business also encompasses, hey, I'm going to help you build a story as well as like here's how you can do social media outreach and get your story out there and publicize it. Am I hearing that wrong, or because I feel like that may not come across in the way you present your business?
No, but I'm glad that you realize caught on to that, because one of the things I want to eventually do is kind of do some consulting at times, because right now the people I'm getting are like, I have a deadline with this copywriting, I have a deadline with this press release, and so that's just kind of how we go. And then if I feel a really good established relationship with that person, we start talking about things and what they're struggling with, I may just kind of go ahead and be like, okay, we might suggest this. And if someone's on the fence, we'll talk that. But yes, I mean, I do generally care to get people to that next level as well. And I kind of like to think of it as, even in the writing spectrum, it's just one gig is an interview for the next gig. And I try to see that all the way through, no matter who it is.
Yeah, great. Then again, just something for you to think about is I would suggest making that part of the way you describe your services, because I think that has real value. And you clearly did it with the two examples you just showed us. For example, when you talked about the autofocus business, right? You clearly were helping them go from, essentially not having any kind of presence that was going to help them get customers to like, here's at least a strategy for having a story and also having outreach.
Yeah. And
yeah, anyway, I thought that was really
No.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Dale. I appreciate that. But I do have kind of a business package where we tend to focus on more of the strategy, well as just the writing as well. But I do eventually want to get to that point where it's full on. So yeah.
Got it.
Nice. Okay. And then Z has a question, and after that we'll go to Brian. Z?
Hi, thanks for sharing your story, Abby. I like writing as well. I remember a long time ago, I was into the writing. So just so you know, I'm not professional, but I was into the writing a little bit. And anytime I read an article, I'm not just looking at the article, I'm also looking at how they start the article, how they build the story, just like you, and then how they conclude. I sort of have a question about detail. You talk about the story. So in a way that my question is, how do you build the story? So you talk to someone, for example, the Kata, the auto story. So how do you, build the stories? So you talk to them and then you need to build, anyway, that's my question.
No, that's a great question. For me, it's already here. So by the time, let's say, for example, I meet up with we meet up for tea or coffee, and you say, I want to discuss this. By the time we're in the middle of the conversation, I've already kind of formulated how you think, what your presence is like. So that kind of gives me an idea of where we're starting to head. And then when, you answer my Q&A, my personalized questions, out of that's where I can pull what I need and highlighting and kind of combine the two. And it just really comes in the creative process for me. And unless you're specifically like, this is the target audience I want to reach, and that's it. You don't want any personality touches. But for me, I think it comes from getting to know you first, like I said, and then throughout the creative writing process itself.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Brian.
Great. Yeah, great presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Abby. I have three ideas / questions for you. First off, I'm assuming you have heard of or are familiar with the story brand framework. Is that something you're aware of?
I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I would strongly recommend just buying the story brand book. So I primarily focus on like product consulting, but I have a long background in marketing. And historically, I've really resisted framework books or, because I thought, my special sauce is so great and so unique. But what I really love about StoryBrand, it's really kind of a, I'm thinking of it basically has these archetypes and these story points. It's a very nice structure. I resisted it for a while, and then I was hearing it from all these different sources. And so I do have the book on my shelf, but I would strongly recommend read it. It's actually, honestly, you don't even have to buy the book. I think the book is good, but you literally just Google, how to do a story brand, and it gives you these 7 story points.
Okay.
And what I could imagine is if you actually did a presentation like this for Million Cups chapters, but said, I'm going to teach you story brand, I think you would actually have a more powerful response out of that. Just because, not because what you bring is, what you're going to bring is so much more than just what they can get out of a book. You're going to guide them in the process. But I think people have a hard time in a 5-10 minute presentation to really become convinced that this is the person who is going to be my Yoda, my guide through this process. And that's true of anyone. I mean, it's not about your presentation. I just think it's really hard. But pointing to a validated third-party framework, sharing it as a value add, and then say, this is what I do. I walk you through this. And the most powerful stories, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or Star Wars or whatever, they use these exact same archetypal story points to stick in our minds, to sell billions of tickets. And then brands are really adopting this, and there's a lot of nice case studies you can refer to. So I just think it kind of fits really well with kind of what you're bringing, and helps to demystify what is story, why do I care. It sort of kind of packages that, and everybody kind of will lean forward to be, I've heard of this. I would like to learn more about it if it's on the radar. So that's just one. I'm going to go quick for the second and third. I promise. I do think that whether or not you embrace that framework, I think you need to view your presentation as a exciting story to invite people into. It was good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great. But I think this idea of putting, the key of StoryBrand is that the audience is the hero. And so basically it's kind of like you're on a journey. Everyone on this call is on their entrepreneurial journey. You're the hero. Let me talk about how, someone like you walked through this process. They were lost in the woods, and you can actually follow the StoryBrand, and talk, even in that process. So that's my second point. My third point is just that my big marketing channel right now that is underutilized, big idea is for all of us, I think, is leveraging pre-roll on YouTube. So YouTube is incredibly easy to target very, very, very narrow audiences. And so you can have very low production quality, literally like you're walking around with your phone kind of quality. You can get fancier as you go, but it's a really great way to hyper target your audience in a less competitive environment. You also, in YouTube, you can set it up so that if you just tell them at the beginning, hey, if you're not a real estate, if you're not interested in buying and selling your home this year, just hit skip. I don't want to talk to you, and then they hit skip. You actually don't have to pay for that impression. So you actually can hyper target even more using YouTube pre-roll video. I just think it's a really big channel for small, medium business.
Thank you for all of that. That is super helpful. And I'm glad that you mentioned that book, because there's been times where I've been kind of I don't know, but the more you dive into something, and especially if multiple people are telling you, it really does make a world of a difference. So I do appreciate that. Great tips. Thank you.
Sounds
Brian,
good.
before we move on, can I just get that name of the book again? I'll try to put it in, or can you put it in the chat?
I'll just put it in the chat. Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And also, and Abby, I'll send you the tools that I use for StoryBrand that I enjoy.
Okay.
also,
sounds
just in
great.
case, because I've done the same thing. So, and Valerie, you have a question.
Yeah, thanks for presenting. I just have one little bit of reflection for you about my experience. In one of your very early slides, you said, in one session, I'm going to do all of these things. And I was like, that can't be true. Like, I was very skeptical. I thought that's weeks worth of work. And then, so you set me up to have you tell me like how you are going to do all of that in one session. And then I didn't really get that like as an arc out of your presentation. So I was a little bit left like, huh? So I'm really glad you gave those examples, but I didn't see like those brought to life to me what you do. So that was great. But I didn't see in those examples how you got all of that done in one session. So if your promise is that you're going to be really efficient with your work, that you can just go in and like, you know, slice in a blah, 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 like great. But then I want to know why that's special or how. Or maybe it's not important that it's done in one session and you let that promise go and you focus on something else. But anyway, I just wanted to share that as a little piece of feedback because I was very dubious that you could do all of that whole
Well,
slide.
yeah, so no, that's
one
good.
take.
So I can clarify that for the next time. But what I mean is that I tackle all that in one session. That's not necessarily say I do it in 5, 10, 15 minutes, right? But if these are things that you're looking for, yeah, I can do it in one quick phone call or a video call, and I've already got this laid out. This is what you need. Okay, perfect. I can do this in one task form on my end. So, and that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, it's absolutely possible to do it in like half a day, right? So, but I get what you're saying. So thank you for bringing that up, and I'll make sure to clarify that. But yeah, but if you're like, yes, I need this, no problem. I can sit down, write it all out, and just kind of formulate it all of those pinpoints if need be. I haven't had a client who needed all of that, but if need be, it's there. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's a good point to kind of clarify the timeline on that and such,
Okay.
because it reminds me of clients that I've had in my business where I'm like, we're going to do a strategic planning session with your team, and I have to clarify. It depends on the business, of course, and the size of the team, but usually it's like we're going to spend 8 hours on this, you know, like to work out your strategic plan. And they're like, my whole leadership team for like an entire day. I'm like, yes, that's what it's going to take. It's good to clarify that, because they, on the flip side, they actually think, oh, we're going to sit down for a couple hours and work out the whole plan. I'm like, that's not how it works. Yeah, for my approach. So Dale, you had a follow up?
Yes. So something else I was thinking about, when you were presenting, one of the things you talked about was building a relationship with people, but then you were also emphasizing, you know, looking at essentially, I'm going to paraphrase, but kind of startup folks who maybe don't have as much experience and we're just trying to get to the next level, I think was the way you described it. But when I go back to thinking about the relationship, one thing I think you might want to highlight is more of where you're assisting people with stories can help them at different points in the business life cycle. So in my head, for example, you might say, you know, if you're just starting out, here's an example here. Here's how I can help you with a story related to an annual report. Like I'm making stuff up, right? But or you know, here's how I can help you with a story to help you launch your next new product. Something that gets people understanding that this isn't just a one and done. This is something where you want to be a recurring resource, you know, for the client. That was just my brainstorm there. So
No, that's beautiful. And thank you for that suggestion.
I was curious also, your, you know, as far as your approach, and I know that you have, because when I looked on your site, you have packages, like typical packages of things that you would, you know, take care of for a client. Is it that you have like these set packages and that's the framework that you work within when you work with a client, or are you meeting with them to like, are you relying on the client to say, these are the things I need? Or are you assessing their needs based on that initial discussion and suggesting a package of services that you could help them with?
That's an excellent question. It's really, I ask them what they need first, and then we go from there. So those are just more like what's available. But really it just comes in the first session where it's like, okay, here, let me talk to you first, see what you need. We don't have to go with the package. We can customize the package. We can edit things out. I had one guy, he's like, I want this package, but I don't want this. Can we replace it with this? And I said, absolutely. Or, again, you may just need something really simple, and I'm not going to charge a full package for that, but it's really just whatever is the need of you, not necessarily me. So you tell me what you need, and then we go from there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure. It was on the website, it was unclear. Now that listening to your presentation, I kind of understand it a little bit better. But,
yeah, I actually
there's
need
some way
to,
to
I need to
do
work
that.
on that website just a little bit. So there are a few kinks with it, and that is one of them, but yes. So because I do want to make it to where like people automatically like, oh, just schedule a call with me before we even go through services. Try to make it more, not like you have to get this. This is the only option, I don't
Yeah.
want it to be like that. Yeah.
Okay. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I agree with that. That resonates with me, by the way. That's kind of how I do things too. Easy. Most clients have to go through like a couple surveys and a meeting before I'm even like, hey, are you even the right client for, like the qualification process, I think is can be arduous potentially. But any other questions or comments or ideas or anything else for Abby before we move on? Okay. All right. So we'll have Dale, you're back. Okay. So I just want to make sure, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. I have one. There we go. One question for Abby, just to make sure that we've covered this, which is, this is a question for Abby. What can the 1 Million Cups community do for you? So I just want to make sure that we're clear on, is there anything that you're looking for specifically that we can help you with?
I think you guys pretty much tackled it. My biggest thing, anytime I present, even when I do poetry on the side, it's always the suggestions from everyone else. It's what you take away and what you learn or what you're unclear about. So everything you guys suggested has been phenomenal in this experience. And it's good because the more you get that kind of, nice criticism, it just helps you with the next thing. Again, this is just like I said, a gig is interview for the next gig. This is the same thing here. So, but you guys have nailed it. So you guys have been wonderful. So you guys have been super helpful.
Great.
But feel free to stay in touch too. That's always a good option.
Nice. Okay.